Good evening, everyone. This is the 7 o'clock meeting of the Mashpee Planning Board, Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020. The Wacoit Meeting Room, 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Mass. It's at 7 PM. The town hall is still closed, so we're having a virtual remote meeting, which is being broadcast live on the local channel 18. For those wishing for public comment, you can call in on the conference number at 508-539-1400, extension 8585. This is being streamed live on the Town of Mashpee website at https://www.mashpeema.gov/channel-18. I'll call meeting order and invite everyone to stand up and pledge the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is your approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from the previous meeting?
Yes.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as written.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Balzerani, seconded by Mr. Falloon. Anyone have any discussion on them? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Well, public hearing's not till 7:10, so do you want to move on to the A and R?
Yeah.
Or move on to some of the new business stuff? Want to take care of Charlie?
Why don't we take care of Charlie's bill and
Yeah.
maybe discussion on the Willow Bend minor modification decision?
All right, we'll take up Mr. Rowley's August invoice.
I gave it to you there, I think it's under the thing I gave you.
Under this here, right? Oh, it's all the way under.
Oh, right here.
Here it is.
Do you have the signatory sheet also that I gave you? It should be right on the second
Right
page of
here.
that.
Is this the same one? Yeah, it is. All right, anyone have any questions regarding the bill?
Nope.
I'll accept an motion.
Make a motion, we pay Charles Riley bill for $250.
Second by Ms.
Second.
Wagon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. We just pass this around so everyone can sign it.
And just pass it right back.
My ab working.
There you go. You got that. You got it.
John.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is the Willow Bend minor modification decision. Has everyone had a chance to read that, what Evan sent out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Do I need to make a motion, or can we just accept it
It's
as is?
approved, if there are no comments, this is a minor modification, so I don't need a majority board signature, so I'll ask the chair to sign this document.
All right, I'll sign it.
I'll collect those from at the end.
Just keep them right here for now.
Oh.
Well, why don't we just go to committee reports, we can get those out of the way now, since some of the other stuff requires some discussion. All right, the board member committee reports, Cape Cod Commission,
No report.
Community Preservation,
No report.
the Design Review Committee.
No meeting.
Oh, you know what? I do have a report.
Sure.
So the Cape Cod Commission is looking for individuals and agencies that are interested in working on the climate action plan for the county, for Barnstable County. So if you're interested in climate change and you're a stakeholder or part of an organization or a community that wants to be part of that discussion, you can go online to the Cape Cod Commission website and apply to be part of that group. So I've applied, not as, just as an individual, not as a member of any group. But anyways, it's an I went to those meetings on the municipal preparedness. What is it, municipal vulnerability preparedness?
program.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was really, that was really interesting, and hopefully we can get the region to kind of support those plans,
Sure.
so that when we go for funding, we're in sync with them and we can get a letter of support. So that's what I was thinking. But if there's anybody else interested, it looks like they have quite a team assembled. They're doing it, like inventories on carbon emissions. They're gonna do that Cape-wide, so that they have something to measure against in 5 and 10 years to see if their plans and activities actually reduce the carbon footprint of Cape Cod. So that was an interesting approach.
Can I add
Thanks for
something
bringing
to
that
that,
up. They
Jack?
did send out an email. I know I received it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
good.
I know I got an email, and thanks for bringing that up.
Can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
This is unrelated, but I'm going to take my opportunity to say that the commission is, trying to assist in getting a stronger participation of the census. Barnstable County has had kind of an absurdly low response rate to the census this year, so they're making a push to, assist in getting people to respond. So for folks listening, for board members who are having conversations with their neighbors, do respond to the census questionnaire at your earliest convenience.
Yes, I agree with you. Plan review. You too?
That's me. We have had no meetings since my last report. Is that right?
The Environmental Oversight Committee?
No meeting,
Wow.
next week.
Greenways, Quashnet Footbridge.
No development.
And we're just gonna call it the Greenways, right?
Yeah, that's right, we did say that.
Jack, just in case I forget, I can't, all the timelines starting to blend together. Plan review, I think, may have met, I can't remember if I've already reported to the board, but the last time I reported was regarding one half of the commercial space at Zachary's to change to a new non-conforming use for the appliance store. The other half came before plan review for a convenience store, and they're going to the Board of Appeals next week. Plan review did approve with some minor conditions.
All right, the Historic District Commission?
No meeting.
Civilian Advisory Council, no meeting.
There you go.
Surprise.
So is that gonna, you guys gonna discuss the shooting range over there? They
Well,
proposed?
On my last meeting, I did bring up, that's one of the things they discussed, and that was in the paper actually recently,
Right.
discussing all the different range activities that are going on, and they talked about their remediation plan, and they actually hired a, oh God, I can't think of his title, but he'll be managing the forestry and taking care of that fire load and what have you, and the underbrush. They do have some nice ranges in there. They have some of the best technology as far as capturing the lead and what have you, so they discussed a lot of that. But it was basically a catch-up, because they had started that actually a year prior, so all this was kind of just a catch-up. They're hoping to get another meeting. I guess the challenge right now is getting the governor to sign off. There's 3 members, myself included, who need to get signed off by the governor so that we can participate as a voting member of the committee. Right now, we're just kind of sitting there. So the next meeting's probably not going to be for another 3 to 4 months, so after the new year. All right, since it is 7:10, we can move on to the public hearing. The 7:10 public hearing is Southport Mashpee Properties LLC, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 440A, Section 11. The Mashpee Planning Board will hold a public hearing. It was open originally on July 1st, 2020, and actually was at our last meeting we continued. At the Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck North, to consider an application from Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC, property owner, to modify the Willow Bend Country Club special permit. The applicant proposes to construct a 6-unit multifamily residential townhouse structure to be known as the Clubhouse Villas on a 40,009 square foot parcel located north of Quiniquisette Avenue and found on the assessors map 69, block 117. I know that we did receive, just close that out, right?
Yeah.
We did receive a letter from the applicant requesting this to be continued again. And so I would entertain a motion to move this to what meeting?
First meeting in October, which is 10/7.
So that the 7th of October meeting at 7:10?
Yes,
I
that's
make a motion, we continue this meeting to October, what is it? 7th? 7:10.
Want a
Second.
Oh, all those, any discussion?
How come they want to postpone it then?
I think, I'm
I
just
thought so.
speculating, I think they're still having discussions with the,
Tribal?
Well,
no,
I think there are a
well,
couple of things, Dennis.
the tribe is one, but also the residents.
So I think they've had a bunch of feedback from the membership at Willow Bend. The second is that they had, on their original site plan, some issues with regard to fire access that they need to rectify. I think there's like a cobblestone path that isn't suitable for the trucks.
Right.
So they need to resolve that issue.
All right.
And lastly, they propose a building that's 39 feet in height and require a variance for 3.5 feet. They have two other structures of, that are the exact same villa, same height. They've received variances for those. They went to design review committee who felt in this particular case, they weren't satisfied with the height of the structure next to the clubhouse. So they asked them to provide some architectural renderings, which they had. But I think at this juncture, I'm not certain if that is the same proposal that's gonna be brought back before the board, or if they're gonna reduce the scale of the building to accommodate the zoning bylaw. So fire access one, the variance is questionable, whether or not they're gonna proceed in that regard. And we received correspondence from David Whedon in his
Right.
capacity as the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer with some concerns about its proximity to sensitive archaeological areas. And I've asked them to provide documentation that that area has already been cleared. They said they would be able to provide that at our next meeting. So those are that's the trifecta of reasons they're seeking to continue again.
Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, we'll move on to the A and R.
If you just remind David to unmute his phone, Jack.
David, if you could unmute your phone, I actually think it's unmuted anyway. Can you hear me, David?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right.
Want to just read out?
Yeah,
Jack,
good
the
evening.
applicant?
David, I'm just gonna read this out. So under the A and R here, the applicant Ed Whalen, I will say this, it does say 50 Coastline Drive, the actual address is 60 Coastline Drive.
Correct.
Mashpee, Mass, it is the same map, 132 lot 10, but that's 60, not 50. To redivide land court lot 1694 into two lots to be known as lot 1694-A and lot 1694-B. Lot 1694-A to be combined with lot 1693, and lot 1694B to be combined with lot 1695. We were given a map so you can kind of see what they're talking about there. All right, David, can you just fill us in on this?
Yeah, very simply, there are two vacant lots there. One of them is going to be split in half and joined with the rest of the first vacant lot, and the other half is going to be joined with an existing house lot. So we're basically making each of the lots right there about 1.5 times bigger than they were originally, and eliminating one house lot.
Is there any other questions for David with regards to this?
I just want to hear from the engineer.
David, I have two questions on the plan. The first question is, where are the areas for each of the two lots measured to? Mean high water, mean low, where does the area go to?
The areas go to mean high because that's where land court decrees to.
Okay. So that's, where the lines are extended beyond mean low water, those are just tie lines for mathematical purposes?
Say again, Charlie, the echo was terrible.
Okay, where the side lot lines project out beyond mean low water, they go to a specific point where they're connected by a tie line. Is that all it is for mathematical purposes?
It's a tie line, yes. It's a mathematical closure because the riparian boundary moves with time.
Okay, so it's not reflecting the boundary necessarily of the lot, just something.
No,
to give-
no.
Yeah,
It
just
makes a mathematical closure on the three sides that are solid, so to say.
Okay, all right, and the other thing is just a comment, pertains to the land court too. You might notice on the plan, in the title block, it says subdivision plan of land. That's a peculiarity of the land court. even though it's an A and R, and you would not typically call it a subdivision,
Okay.
for land court purposes, it is, and so that's why the language is there. Other than that, I have nothing.
And he's supposed to be at 150 feet, right? For a,
Beg your pardon, Dennis?
doesn't the lot line supposed to be 150 feet?
For frontage?
Yeah, on the road.
Not in this particular case, it's in New Seabury where they can, I believe they can go down to 20 feet.
Oh, okay,
And in this particular case, you've got 38.67 on one
yeah,
and 38.68 with the other. So,
Yeah.
they meet the requirements under the special permit, I believe.
all right,
Yeah, these are those lots adjacent to Tide Watch and the Country Club.
right.
Yeah. Any other questions, members of the board?
Yep.
All right, anyone make a motion?
I make a motion approval not required. Yes.
Second that motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
We'll get this
Thank you
signed
very
and get
much.
that out
We'll
to you.
pick up that Mylar at some point in the future.
We all gonna
All right.
sign or
Yep.
just?
David,
gotta
I'll
go
let
through
you know
and
when
sign
it's
it.
available in my office for pickup.
Did you hear that, David?
I didn't know.
We're gonna sign it and we'll have it in Evan's office for pickup.
Yeah, okay, and we'll come by and get it in the near future. Thank you very much, all.
Okay.
Y'all sign it?
All right,
Well, you want some paper ones too, right?
Since you have them, I'll hold on to them for you. I
Do
usually
you want us
scan
to
'em.
sign them though, or?
I don't need to sign it.
All right.
I'll scan the signed one here.
let's go sign these.
It'll save your wrists.
Any surprises dropping your daughter off?
Was it quiet on the
Since
train?
you're signing, this is Jen, since you're signing, can I ask the question? The speaker, David, didn't identify himself. Could you tell me his last name, please?
Crispin, Crispin.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry about that, Jen.
No problem.
Oh, yeah?
You have to put the date on it, right?
Date of approval?
Yeah.
If you want to go ahead and do that for me, Dennis, I'd appreciate it. Otherwise, I'll handle it.
Oh, yeah, I forgot we gotta do that.
And we got Catherine and Jack on the Zoom, and Gabby, if you're ready to move forward.
All right, so next item is the NPDES Stormwater Permit Public Outreach. We have Catherine Laurent on the Zoom, our DPW Director. Catherine, can you hear us?
I can.
Speaking on behalf is Gabrielle. What's Gabrielle's last name?
Belfit,
Belfit.
Belfit.
Did you get that, Jen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right, Catherine.
Hello, everyone. I am here with Gabrielle, who is from Ty and Bond. She is our consultant for our stormwater permit, the NPDES permit. We are in permit year number 3, and we're here kind of for 2 reasons. One, to fulfill a requirement that we have a public hearing before a board with the town. So this year we decided to come before the planning board to kind of update you on what we've accomplished in the last 2 years and what is proposed for permit year 3. And then also, as you know, you have a few zoning bylaw articles for October town meeting on the warrant that are relating to stormwater that are requirements of our permit. So at that, I'm going to just turn it over to Gabrielle.
All right, well, thank you, Catherine. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides now, if that's all right.
Yes.
All right, you let me know if you can see them.
Yep.
Looks good.
You got them?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, and you can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, super. Thank you, Catherine, for that introduction. So I'm going to just kind of give you all the findings of this presentation, like right off the bat. So you can zone out a little bit for 10 minutes or so if you like. No, I'm just kidding. But the great news is Mashpee has addressed all of the permit year 2 requirements. We're going to take a quick spin through that progress and what our plans are for the permit year 3 that we've just started now. I want to make the planning board aware of the amendments to the MS4 general permit, which are expected to be implemented in the very near future. And what all this is really doing for the town of Mashpee is those post-construction bylaw requirements are going to have one extra year to be enacted by the end of June 2021. So I'm not exactly sure. We'll be talking about the bylaws a little bit later. But I wasn't sure when you said you've got stuff on the warrant for town meeting October. I don't know if this is the IDDE bylaw or if this is the erosion stormwater control or the pre and post-construction bylaw revision, because there's sort of 3 things, so not sure. But at any rate, I just to kind of a really quick overview, if anyone wants a little bit of a refresher about the EPA small MS4 stormwater regulations. This program is jointly administered by both EPA and Mass DEP for Massachusetts, and this is under the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. That's what NPDES stands for. The first permit was issued under Phase 2 of the Clean Water Act in 2003, regulating cities and towns that tripped urbanized area thresholds. And Mashpee was one of those communities. It's designated as a small municipal separate storm sewer system, or MS4. That first permit expired in 2008. It's a 5-year permit. And then it was put on hold for 10 years. The draft was issued in 2016, but it was not fully signed until 2018. So there are 206 municipalities across Massachusetts, most of them in eastern Massachusetts, and almost all of the Cape. They're authorized to discharge stormwater on the permit, and we've just wrapped up the second year of this 5-year permit implementation. So, in a nutshell, under the permit, communities are required to develop best management practices covering the 6 different areas of the permit section. And all of them have a specific goal of eliminating contaminants from reaching waters of the U.S. The permit addresses impaired water. In Mashpee, the water bodies that are shown there in red are the impaired water bodies, and the ones that are shown there in yellow are ones where there is a total maximum daily load that has been published for specific contaminants. These best management practices range from just increasing public education about eliminating pollutants from getting to the water, additional road sweeping, to detailed nutrient control plans for nitrogen and phosphorus impaired water bodies. So the impairments were initially established based on the 2014 list of integrated waters, or I think that's called the 303, Section 303D, which is called the list. And Ashumet and Bantuit ponds impairments for phosphorus, and then there's an additional 14 ponds and bays and estuaries with either impairments or published TMDLs for nitrogen, and bacteria. So it's quite a combination of things, but those are the three contaminants to worry about. So just a quick look on what Mashpee has completed so far. For the beginning first year of the permit was really focused on creating a lot of the planning documents that were going to help implement the permit under each of the 6 minimum control measures. So these can all be found at that website there. On the Public Works has a special section for the stormwater management program, and that stormwater management plan is really the blueprint for how Mashpee addresses each of the 6 minimum control measures. It identifies the parties that are responsible for implementing them, and the planning board is one of those responsible parties. And then it lays out specific tasks to be completed over each of the 5 years of the permit. There is also, never mind. So the Stormwater Management Task Force is the working group for this program. It was established by the Board of Selectmen 2 years ago, September 2018, and this guarantees that the multiple staff that have been identified as having some responsibility for implementation of the program would meet and provide input. So the task force really only meets just once a year, and that's the minimum requirement. They review the progress made under the stormwater management plan, and they also provide reporting metrics to the annual report that we submit each year to EPA and MassDEP. And Catherine actually is authorized by the town and EPA to sign all of the stormwater reporting documents, including the annual report. So, Evan, I have sent you information about certain metrics that we need to have completed from the planning board. And we're trying to schedule that meeting in the next week or so. For permit year 2, we completed quite a lot. We always do the public review and reporting, and this meeting today covers the public meeting requirements. We've got public education updates. We completed a survey. Not really good turnout. I think we had 4 people taking the survey, so we'll have to rethink that one. We updated the outflow mapping and did quite a bit under the good housekeeping minimum control measure, and then we'll talk about the work done for the pre and post-construction bylaw review. So that public education, there's a website on the town page, and our approach really was to address in one place all of the required businesses and construction companies, residents, and other constituents that are required to be educated at various times throughout the course of the 5 years. So it's quite a comprehensive website, and you can find it again on Mashpee's stormwater page. For the outfall and stormwater system mapping, initially 37 outfalls had been mapped by AmeriCorps back in 2003. And when we first went to look at the map, we were concerned that some of those outfalls were not properly identified and likely did not meet EPA's definition of a regulated outfall. So in planning year 1 and 2, Time Bond together with town completed inspections of all the previous mapped outfalls and discovered many new ones where town roads crossed water bodies. And after a very careful screening, going out in the field with conservation, the final system map was reduced down to only 16 outfalls that meet the EPA definition. So this is the map of something like this. It includes our drop inlets or catch basins, the 16 MS4 regulated outfalls, and manholes as well. And that is what Mashpee's system looks like. For the Good Housekeeping Plan, in permit year 2, the town completed a townwide facility inventory, including 35 sites grouped under municipal buildings, school buildings, fire and safety facility, parks and open space, further divided into active recreation, beaches, waterfronts, and boating. And the purpose of the inventory is to look at all of the sites and facilities within the town that have some pollution potential. And for those that have the highest pollution potential, and this was the DPW garage and transfer station, stormwater pollution prevention plans are required to be developed. So we completed that at the end of permit year 2, and this plan provides inventory of all potential pollutants at these 2 sites, recommends best management practices to manage the materials found there, provides emergency response protocol, and guidelines for required periodic inspection and staff training. So in permit year 3, the town is going to go back to that town-wide inventory, and the requirement is to develop written procedures for operation and maintenance to cover all of the sites. So that will be a little bit of a process, reaching out to a number of different departments to make sure that we have a good understanding of the activities that are going on at each site, and then we'll develop draft standard operating procedures and go through a review process with each relevant department. So getting down to the pre- and post-construction bylaws, we reviewed those at great length at the end of last year, or over, I'd say, between January and June of 2020. And we reviewed Chapter 85, the Stormwater Management Bylaw, the site plan review process, as well as master zoning bylaw. And we've got some minor revisions for Chapter 85. And one of them is there isn't really a good way for site plan review to inspect sites. So there's site plan review procedure, but there is not site plan inspection and enforcement. So we're kind of inviting site plan review to as an option in addition to DPW to the general bylaw language. And then in the site plan review, written procedures for site plan review were a little bit lacking, and we recommend adopting a checklist. So that's really kind of the 2 things for the construction site runoff control. Then under post-construction, there's, again, this is a great start with Mashpee zoning bylaws. Really, it covers the types of developments that are, 1 acre or more, or less than an acre if they are part of a common plan. And there's just a few places to bring the language into compliance with the general permit. And I've listed some of the areas there. And a big one is, we know the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook is going to be updated. And to keep the bylaw from having to be updated each time, we're suggesting to include reference to the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook as amended. So rather than, go to some very specific place in it, if we're including the language to the Stormwater Handbook as amended and reference Mass Stormwater Standards and the MS4 general permit post-construction requirements, it's going to cover the basis. final thing that we need to make sure that happens is that there is submission of as-built drawings that happens sometime up to 2 years after construction. And I know there was a little bit of conversation back and forth, Evan, but I didn't have all of the details, so I just wanted to make sure that I kept it back in there. And there is also some specific impaired water body requirements, and that is something that kind of crosses back from just looking at Mashpee-owned sites and facilities now to private development as well. And so this requirement is that new development and redevelopment of stormwater BMPs be optimized for both phosphorus and nitrogen removal. So I would imagine that you could make the case that if your location was within the watershed of a water body that was impaired only for phosphorus, that it would only need to address that. But they're really both so similar, and fire retention is really the way to go. It's, you know, it's taking care of both nitrogen and phosphorus. So I think you can hit two birds with one stone. And then finally, looking at permit year 3, there's some phase 2 mapping requirements, which are really going to focus on locating and investigating key manhole junctions. I mentioned that the ordinance for post-construction stormwater can be carried over, and I'm not sure. You're going to have to let me know where things stand with that. But you do have that extra year to implement them, or to get them passed. And establishing written procedures to require submission of as-built drawings is required in permit year 3, and then inspecting municipal stormwater treatment structures that are meeting EPA's definition, and this excludes catch basins, then tracking the town-owned structural BMPs in urbanized area. So this one is different than what the bylaw is requiring for development and redevelopment. This is just tracking BMPs that are town-owned and completing the Good Housekeeping Standard operating procedures. So that is the plan. So next steps are to have the planning board get to work on those revisions, have the Stormwater Management Task Force review the metrics, and to submit our annual report by September 28th. So that's it. And if there's any questions.
Sure, Dennis has a question for you.
How come you keep on saying 2 years? Wouldn't it be better when they get the permit to occupy the building, to have that done too at the same time, instead of giving somebody 2 years?
The as-built? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, they said everything was 2 years delay. What's the purpose for that?
I did not hear any of that.
Oh,
So what's the purpose of having the 2-year delay or the 2-year requirement, up to 2 years, to get copies of the as-built?
yeah.
I honestly, I have no idea. That is the language in the permit. It doesn't really make any sense to me either, but maybe they feel that it takes a long time to build something.
I think our town planner has a comment in regards to that.
It'll be a little back and forth between Charlie and myself, but this came up when we first had an initial meeting with Ty and Bond when they supplied their draft memo that I provided the board some time ago relative to the as-bills. I think a comment Charlie had made was that the plan that the permit granting authority ultimately approves ends up being the as-built because we have pretty good inspection procedures. So why require the developer to submit an as-built drawing when we have essentially the as-built drawing? And if I remember, the answer was, well, they're telling us to put that language in the bylaw, not for any practical purpose. Do you recall that conversation?
I do. I don't recall that we actually resolved it at that meeting, but I suppose you could suggest an as-built plan. But like Evan has suggested, the approved plan is what I always use to go out and make an inspection by, and that's what any site contractor uses in order to build it. So I guess you could rubber stamp that original plan and call it an as-built if there weren't any significant changes. Once in a while, you will find what I would consider to be a field change, because they've got some interference with an underground utility that they couldn't find, and they have to reload a catch basin from, say, point A to point B, which might be 2 or 3 feet away. You'll find that occasionally. But unless there were major changes, and it's always been my policy that if I feel it's a major change, I would bring it back to this board and ask them to look at it, and if they feel it is, then to modify the plan in some fashion, either through a modification of the special permit, or if they consider it a minor modification, then they basically sign off on it. So I guess the board would have to deliberate what you want to do with an as-built plan. They've got it in the plan, perhaps people that wrote it don't see things the way that the town of Mashpee has done it in the length of time that I've been involved in site plan inspection. But if you want to follow it through that way, you could develop some sort of a procedure, I suppose, for getting the engineer of record to certify that the construction's been in accordance with the approved plan.
Yeah.
That's one way of doing it. I don't think it's necessary to go out there and to take an elevation of every pipe, every catch basin, every manhole, to find that the grate elevation is 1/10 of a foot different than what was shown on the original plan. Those minor changes occur from time to time, but they're insignificant. So unless there's some other reason for an as-built plan, I think there should be some practical way of getting to it without putting the applicant or the contractor through unnecessary work because of the way that you've managed your plans in the past.
Do we find it necessary to have that language in there?
I don't think so, but that's my opinion. I mean, it should be like, it's already done. When you do a house, you have to give an as-built plan to show where you, so, I mean, I don't understand what's a 2-year period. I could see.
Oh, I think you should have it in there, it's the maximum amount of time you have to do an as-built. I was thinking more like a chapter 40B, like something that is a larger,
But you're still gonna get the plans approved where the septic systems and everything's going, so that's an as-built.
oh, because you can't go
You
forward
can't
unless you
go
have an
forward unless
as-built.
it's already, that's what I've run into. I mean, you have to get
But
stamped.
if I'm standing correctly, to echo what Charlie said, if there is some modifications and they need to submit a new set of plans or an as-built plan, and the minor modification doesn't require us to meet again, the 2-year is in place so that they can get enough time to do it and get it to us. Is that basically what it is?
I think, personally, I think that 2 years, things can get lost.
Yeah,
My suggestion would be that when you write your special permits, that you put in the special, unless, if the overall EPA permit says you have up to 2 years, I would suggest you put something in there that's a lot more restricted than that, simply to keep it at the forefront of the people who are developing the project, so that you're not looking out, or Evan or somebody else is not looking out 2 years hence and saying, gee, what happened to that project? We've never seen anything.
yeah.
But so long as they're using plans that are actually approved, and the construction is being done by the approved plan, as soon as the last inspection is done, it would seem to me that the as-built plan could be prepared, stamped, and submitted to the town. You don't need 2 years necessarily.
Is that 2 years contained within the warrant article, or is that something separate?
I don't.
I didn't see it.
I don't think what we submitted, and for Gabrielle's benefit, the urgent submissions were the zoning-related articles, because we had to deal with those at town meeting, and we had the deadline in July, which is why the zoning-related articles need action now, and we still have time to act on the other recommendations, like the plan review checklist and some other items.
Okay.
If I may, though, I just want to note to Gabrielle and Catherine, because they're on the phone, that in your packet is the the placeholder articles, if you will, that were suggested exactly by Gabrielle and the staff at Ty and Bond and Catherine. This is the last meeting that this board has to suggest the Board of Selectmen enact any changes to those submitted articles before they execute the warrant. So if you have questions or would want to propose or have a discussion about minor amendments or changes to those, Gabrielle would be a great person to ask before the warrant gets executed. We have some minor changes that Mary had submitted, but anything substantive, I think we should have a dialogue on. And again, the language submitted as placeholder was exactly the language that was proposed by Ty and Bond for the amendments that would achieve compliance for our stormwater permits.
And much of what Gabby referenced in the end of that presentation actually was on some of this material. if
Oh,
anyone
yeah,
knows it.
that was exactly it. I didn't know where things stood, what action you had taken, so I was
So-
just covering them.
So has this been reviewed by Ty and Bond?
The language that I submitted, they haven't seen that memo, but exactly what was submitted to the
Yeah.
selectmen was the language that they produced for the planning board in their memo.
Okay, so if we pass these at town meeting, then we're checking off the box of any bylaw change, zoning bylaw change we have to make.
Yes,
Okay, good. And then other changes would happen with our other regulatory documents.
indeed.
Okay.
And just again, as a reminder, I think Catherine and the DPW at the last town meeting had submitted some general bylaw amendments to kind of get the ball rolling towards some of the necessary revisions to the general bylaws.
Can you remind me, when's the public hearing on this?
We need to set the public hearing at our next meeting, but my proposal will be on October 7th.
Okay.
Since we do have Gabby on the phone, does anyone have any questions in regards to these bylaws?
I do.
Charlie has a question.
Two questions. It was recommended in your presentation, Gabrielle, that enforcement be done by site plan review. Could you elaborate a little bit on that and how that would actually work?
I can point back to the exact passage. Let me just bring that up real quickly. As far as how it would work, I can't really tell you that because I don't know like what your day-to-day procedures are. So we made that recommendation under 84.6 under inspection. The Director of Public Works and/or Site Plan Review Committee or their designee may enter upon the property of the applicant for the purpose of conducting regular inspection to ensure compliance with the approved erosion and sediment control plan and provisions of this bylaw. And then it lays out the schedule for inspection prior to start of construction, inspection of the BMPs during construction, and inspection of the BMPs upon completion to ensure they are working as described in the approved plan.
Okay.
So that is how it is. That's how it reads. How you do it, I don't know.
Well, the question I have that's related to that is, the Site Plan Review Committee is sort of advisory to either the ZBA or the Planning Board. And the ZBA and the Planning Board are the special permit granting authorities. And once those permits are issued, then either of those boards and/or the building inspector has enforcement powers. Why wouldn't it be up to them to do the enforcement rather than a site plan review committee that only sees the plans at the initial stages and really doesn't get to see the final result?
So, the site plan review was lacking inspection and enforcement.
I didn't get that.
She said site plan review was lacking inspections and enforcements.
Well,
And I think if I can just jump in,
Yeah.
there are some projects that do not require approval of either the zoning board or the planning board. So I think some of the language was to make sure that we're not letting those projects slip through the cracks and not have any inspection.
But I think what Charlie's trying to ask is, currently our site plan review committee doesn't enforce, right?
It,
I
go ahead.
think, I think what might be, there are very few projects that go before plan review, and plan review acts as the site plan approval process. They are always advisory to the ZBA or the planning board with regard to construction projects via the special permit process. And as a result of being the permit granting authority, the inspection authority is vested within that board, either the planning board or the zoning board of appeals. It seems prudent to just, how, you know, I think this might be a general bylaw. I don't know if this language is in the zoning bylaw.
No, I think this is the general bylaw that she was citing, right?
But with that
Kathy?
being said, it might be
Correct.
prudent just to elaborate on that language to clarify that in the event that a inspection authority isn't already vested within the Board of Appeals or the Planning Board as permit granting authorities, inspection authority will be granted to site plan review in those limited circumstances. Does that make sense?
That's better.
Did
Yeah,
you hear that, Kathy?
And then that would satisfy the suggestions or the requirements, I'm not exactly sure, of the stormwater permits.
clearly a single-family house lot, if it's already been permitted, doesn't require a site plan review, doesn't require any additional work by the planning board. So, Catherine, is that the type of project you were thinking of?
No,
There are-
single-family homes are exempt. So,
There are situations, like the one example I can think of where the plan review committee is like a permit granting authority, or at least an approving authority, is like for home occupations. The site plan review committee for someone who has like a home, who operates their wood shop and, you know, and it wants to operate as a home occupation, they approve the site plan for that. Or at least approve the use. Often there isn't any construction involved with the approval of those projects.
Does that
And
make
then there's
sense?
construction of less than 1,000 square feet. But generally, almost every construction project in Mashpee that's commercial or industrial triggers a special permit review process.
All right, your second question, Charlie?
The second one was, I noted in your presentation that some areas that were designated as urbanized areas needed special investigation and reporting. What is defined as an urbanized area as it appears or would apply to the town of Mashpee?
Well, the entire town of Mashpee is within an urbanized area. So there's no part of Mashpee that's outside of an urbanized area. But, you know, in some communities I work with, there's only 10% of their town is urbanized, so the permit actually is applicable only to that 10%. In the case of Mashpee, the general permit applies to the entire town.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions for Gabby? Go ahead, Mary.
Hi, my name is Mary. Hi, Gabby. It's nice to have your presentation. I also got by email from our town planner the 5-year work plan. And I saw that there was lots of places for public participation or public notice, and I heard you say that there was a survey recently. I was disappointed to hear that only 4 people responded to the survey. And I think that with a lot of new interest on our impacted rivers and streams and ponds and embayments, that I think that people would like to get involved more with this. So I'm just asking you, and maybe Catherine can answer too, you know, how do people get involved? I now see this great website that has the plans, so that's one way, is to read the plans, but what are other ways that the public can get involved in this?
Well, that's a really great question. And we actually, when you read the stormwater management plan, you'll see a whole list of activities and opportunities that that take place. You know, from cleanups to school events, and Catherine, help me think of something else. So there have been traditionally these public outreach opportunities, and certainly I'm sure the town is interested in doing more. Unfortunately, they have we've got a pretty limited budget for what the town can. They're really required for checking off these boxes. So they'll check off the minimum, and then to do more is really going to require someone like yourself saying, what else can we do? And figuring out how to get it done.
Okay, that's good, so we'll start there. And now, I'm the planning board's representative to the Community Preservation Committee, and I was part of a webinar that was talking about the use of community preservation funds for stormwater control when it's going into an impacted, pond. And
Yep.
I was wondering if Gabby or you or Catherine have identified any pieces in the plan for some place in Mashpee for that to be applied.
Oh, that's a really great question. So we talked about, you saw the plan with the map that showed the impaired water bodies and where all the outfalls are. So we've identified 35 facilities, sites and facilities across Mashpee that are town-owned, that and many of these have stormwater systems on them, or they're nearby an impaired water body. And so what we'll be doing as a requirement of the permit is looking to see whether there's good town-owned sites that can be retrofitted to address the nitrogen, phosphorus, and bacteria impairments. So that's spot on one of the objectives of the plan. In not this year, but in permit year 4. So we'll be as we do our inventory, we'll be looking at locating all of the engineered best management practices for stormwater that are on the town-owned land, and then next year we'll be making some recommendations for prioritization for retrofit.
I'm sorry, say that last sentence again. You'll be making recommendations for what?
For prioritization
Oh.
of the existing stormwater best management practices, engineered retention basins, rain gardens, and whatnot. We'll be making recommendations for retrofit to improve them.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I had a question. I've noticed in many towns around the country, stormwater medallions, usually invisible sight of storm drains, embedded into the concrete. Every time I see one, it has a little fish on it. It says, protect, the environment type of thing. It's a great way of putting out the fact that these drains that you're walking over, impact the environment. And I don't know if Mashpee utilizes any of those currently, or if that's, more visibility is in the plan to.
That's a great idea. The storm drain markers. The funny thing is that about 99% of Mashpee's storm drainage goes to leaching catch basins, so they're not piped systems that go to outfalls. But there definitely are locations that some type of, where the outfalls are, would be great places to put some type of a, a visibility marker. We actually, in quite a few communities, we labeled the outfalls to bring attention to them and did some public education about what an outfall was and why it was important to be aware of it, because it's a spot where pollutants can directly discharge to a water body. So, but as far as the grates themselves, they're going to 99% of the time they're going to leaching catch basins, which are actually very good filters for capturing phosphorus and bacteria. Not quite as good for nitrogen, but anyway.
Okay, well, thank you.
You have anything to add to that, Catherine? Did you buy stormwater markers back in the day?
I think when we finally were interested in it, the program was ending, so we kind of missed out on it.
Missed out on that.
Yeah, and it's a stationary, visible, reminder to everyday people walking down the street, like, what is this? And, it keeps it in their mind that, what you pour down the drain or flush down, whatever, has an impact on your environment.
Yeah, they definitely are really good. I think that, there's probably a couple of different strategies that Mashpee could take from marking their waterways in outfall probably as effectively.
Thank you.
Anyone have any other questions? Okay, well, I thank you, Catherine, and I thank you, Gabby, for your information.
All right, well, let me know if you need help anywhere. Feel free to give me a buzz.
All right,
And
I appreciate it.
Give you my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, we might as well continue with the town plan. Do you have anything else to add, Evan?
I don't, well, I guess, just to, kind of put the bookends on it. Are there no additional edits or amendments to the submitted zoning articles that the board would wish to discuss or see prior to the close of this meeting? Because if there are, I need to know what they are tonight so I can put them in writing and submit them to the Board of Selectmen. I have comments from one board member that, so that they'll.
You put them in, right? You put my comment in.
And,
Handbook, wow.
and so if there's nothing else, I'm gonna do nothing. The selectmen will execute the warrant as presented to the planning board in this memo. And if there are, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll continue on my update.
Thank you.
So should we set the public hearing note?
Well, actually, Charlie has something to say
Oh,
first.
okay.
Just, if it's appropriate, are you going to be talking about these articles tonight?
If there are suggested edits to these articles, I'd like to know what they are tonight.
Just a question. This would be the second article, I guess it would be. And this would be on the last page of the second article, where it talks about the building inspector shall require submission of sufficient plans and specifications. At what point does the building inspector get involved in that? Is it at the time of the submission of the application to the town planner's office, or I'm not understanding exactly that implementation for either B1 or B2?
I have to try and remember, Charlie, if this particular section is already existing in our bylaw or not.
Okay.
I think it may. I don't have my red-lined copy. Because right now I don't have an answer to your question.
I mean, when else would you want it submitted? Do you want it submitted to the special permit granting authority before it goes to the building inspector, or?
Well, I'm not sure when the building inspector actually sees plans like this. if it requires a variance, I guess that the building inspector gets to see a plan, and then he issues a letter of denial, which allows the applicant to go to the ZBA for a variance. But at the time that you actually are receiving, say, a residential or non-residential development or redevelopment that's in compliance with your bylaw, would the building inspector see it then, or would it come first to Evan's office and ultimately to
Right.
you?
Yeah.
At what point in that case would the building inspector be involved with it? That's my question.
I want to know one thing to the
I'm just
board.
confused about it, that's all.
That whole paragraph is exactly as it sits in the bylaw today. The only edit or amendment proposed in that section is to include in the second sentence the words "and redevelopment" after "for development." So it would read "for development and redevelopment."
Okay.
So Charlie, I don't have an answer to your question, only to respond that
Well,
it's
if
exactly
it's
how it
been
sits in the
there, I can't
bylaw
say
today.
it's
It is what
been
it
an
is,
issue
right?
For anybody, so we'll leave it alone, I guess.
Okay.
Do you have anything else, Charlie?
No.
Mary, you had something.
No, I just wanted to see if you wanted a motion to set the public hearing.
Sure. If no one has anything this, you want to go ahead and set the motion for the public hearing?
Make a motion that we set the public hearing for these bylaws on October 7th at 7:20?
I'll second that motion.
Second?
Or he can second that motion, sure.
Charlie seconded, Dennis seconded it. Do I have any discussion?
No.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? None?
Thank you for getting that done tonight.
You have anything else, Evan?
I did, just to keep things moving forward, with regards to the cluster box unit mailbox amendments to special permit regs and subdivision regs. A very minimal dialogue with Charlie, provided some assistance with language. I didn't make much changes other than Charlie had suggested to me to make at minimum 2 requirements, and it's sufficient space provided for the mail delivery vehicle to get off of the road surface, and sufficient space for residents to temporarily park while getting mail. Again, this isn't priority, we don't have to do this immediately. I just wanted to continue providing something for you to react to. I also provided a draft public hearing notice, because if we are to make these amendments, we'll need to hold the public hearing for the amendment to the subdivision rules and regulations. Again, this isn't urgent, we don't have to do this, you can sit on it, we can set a public hearing date at a later time, but I provided it so you have it. If you'd like to just review this again, that's also okay, but I just wanted to make sure we
I'm fine with it.
keep going.
Yeah, let's bang
I'm fine with it, just the way it is.
Yeah,
Fine.
I thought it was fine.
So if you'd like to proceed, we can set a public hearing date, or we can do that at our next meeting.
Let's set a public
Yeah,
hearing.
let's just set it.
Yeah.
We have 2 on, first in
We have 2 in
October, so
October.
maybe we make it for the 2nd in October?
Yeah, I already.
Sure.
Well, if you want people to comment on it, have it on the 7th.
Yeah, well, can it be at 7:30? Can it be the third
Sure,
item?
it can be, sure.
I make a motion, we set a public hearing at 7:30 for the mailboxes placement,
On
For
what
amendment.
date?
October
October
7th.
7th.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, carries. Great.
That's it from the town planner.
Okay.
All right, everyone has seen the correspondence on the thing. The additional topics, I just want to bring this up, and maybe not be appropriate, again, I'm learning as I go here, but a discussion we had a while back with regards to the development down in Seabury at Great Oak Road where the new road comes out, and the storm drains there. I will note that, Dennis, you brought that up, and I rode by it, but that one storm drain that comes right off that driveway is now so overflow, it's actually have trees coming out of it. And,
They never cleaned it out, I don't
they
think.
never
No.
emptied it or cleared it, and I wasn't sure if it's appropriate for us to say something, or,
If you'd like, I can put something in writing to submit to New
Yeah.
Seabury to
That'd be nice.
I
suggest
mean, there's
that they.
actually
Didn't know
brush
last
growing
meeting.
out of the drain now.
He did note that he said they'd take care of it.
Yeah, they said they were gonna take it.
Yeah.
I just, because the sand is going beyond that now and continuing on down the road, and.
I'd be happy to put something in writing if the board would like me to, and if no action is taken, perhaps invite them in to discuss with the
Explain
board.
why, yeah.
You want to authorize time for Charlie to support Evan? in
Yeah,
that matter?
if you have time, Charlie, that'd be great, you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You
want
know
a
what
motion
you're
for
talking
that?
about, yeah.
Do you want a motion for that?
Sure, let's go for it.
I make a motion that we authorize our consulting engineer to work with the town planner on that matter.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And
I have nothing else.
I make a motion we adjourn.
I second that motion, sir.
Well, I'll say one thing first. I always like to say, does anyone have anything for the good of the board? No? All right.
We're good.
Second, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
I wanna know how the little kids are gonna be wearing a mask.